Thank you, Lilith. I'm not sure that my talk will be enlightening. I read it before today morning, and I had the impression it is very confusing, actually. But I thought it's not bad, yeah. Maybe confusion is a good start. The question why? In a certain way, I would like to skip this question, why? Simply saying that the artist in one way and another always try to impress the public and to change the world they're living in. And if the artists want to change the world in which they live, the following question arises: in what way art is able to achieve such a change? There are basically two answers to this question. The first answer, art can capture the imagination and change the consciousness of the people. If the consciousness of the people will change, then the changed people will also change the world in which they live. Here, art is understood as a kind of language that allows the artist to send a message. And this message is supposed to enter the souls of the recipients, change their sensibility, their attitude, their ethics. It is a, let's say, idealistic understanding of art, similar to our understanding of religion and its impact on the world. But to be able to send a message, the artist has to share the language that his or her audience speaks. However, already at the beginning of the 19th century, Hegel diagnosed a loss of common faith, common religion, that would unite the artist and the audience. And already at that time, Hegel said that art lost its truth and also lost its ability to influence its public because of the loss of this common language, common religious language, actually. Later, religious communities were replaced by political movements in which the artists and the audience both participated. But unlike religious communities, these movements revealed themselves as too fluid and historically unstable. That is why the historical avant-garde, including Bauhaus, became extremely skeptical towards the possibility to influence the souls of the public and to build a community of which they would be a part. At that point, the second possibility to change the world by art came into play. Here, art is understood not as production of messages, not even production of images or words, but rather as production of things, so design in a certain way. Even if the artist and the audience do not share a common language, they share the common material world in which they live. As a specific kind of technology, art does not have a goal to change the soul of the spectators. Rather, it changes the world in which the spectators actually live. And by trying to accommodate themselves to the new conditions of the environment, they change their sensibilities and attitude. So it is a reversal. The design is a reversal of the initial artistic project. Initial artistic project was to create new mankind that would create a new world. The design project is a project of creating a new world and producing a new mankind as a part of this world. Speaking in Marxist terms, art can be seen as a part of superstructure or as a part of the material basis. In other words, can be understood as ideology or as technology. The radical artistic avant-garde pursued the second, technological way of the world transformation. They tried to create new environments that would change the people living inside them. We can say that was the attitude of Russian constructivism in the 20s, Bauhaus, the style. Taking all the differences as consideration, the general attitude is this. So if the artist begins to work with technology and understand art as a kind of techne, so how Heidegger described it, yeah? So return to the old Greek understanding of art as techne, as actually a kind of technology. Then what is the relationship of the artist to the technological progress? Now, if you look especially at the theoretical writings of Russian Avant-Garde and Bauhaus, that is a central problem for them. The technological progress itself is non-teleological. It moves from nowhere to nowhere. And the first generation of the European avant-garde actually were fascinated by that. So we had this Italian futurism with its cult of war and destruction, Malevich with his concept of the infinite non-objective power that eternally pushes the world towards a change, as well as Dada with its celebration of chaos and nonsense and all kind of absurdity. But in the 20s, the artists try to do something quite different, namely to impose or superpose on a technological progress a kind of artistic plan. So to turn the non-teleological technological progress movement into a new post-religious secular teleological project. As Marshall McLuhan wrote, the artist moved from the ivory tower to the control tower. So this artistic reaction towards the technological progress had a goal to give this progress certain direction, to ascribe it to certain telos. When we speak about changing the world, it sounds as if the world actually lives always or perpetuates the status quo. So if we do not change it, it doesn't change. But it's, of course, wrong. We are living in a situation of perpetual change. Yeah? You remember the slogan, change we can. Yeah? But actually, it's only one thing we can. The only one thing that happens is a change, it's a permanent change. The problem with this change is because this change has no beginning and no clear end and clear direction, this permanent change is experienced by us as a stasis. So in a very, not only seemingly paradoxical way, this permanent change can become a real change only if it will be stopped in a certain way by some utopian project, as Walter Benjamin also wrote about it. So we have a strange project. If we're speaking about change the world, I think what people mean is to change the change. Yeah? So to change the change from the non-teleological change to the teleological change. That's what people have in mind. Now this goal of this change of the change was a kind of secular, if you want, enlightenment. Enlightenment as an ideal utopian total light in which everything becomes transparent. I just wrote here quotation from very famous Other Flows text, Ornament and Crime from 1908. And he speaks about this new transparency. And at the end, he says, "Behold, the time is at hand fulfillment awaits us. Soon the streets of the cities will shine like white walls, like Zion, the holy city, heaven's capital. Then fulfillment will be ours. Yeah? This ideal of new secular Zion, of new transparency, of radical simplicity, minimalism, austerity understood, of course, in different ways, understood in a framework of neoliberal politics. This kind of new, almost neo-monastic radicalism actually had this secular Zion as its goal. And in a certain way, we got this Zion. At least, I remember the times very well, in the 80s, beginning of the 90s, as people believed this Zion of complete transparency is here, and it is the internet. The internet was interpreted as a kind of realization of radical avant-garde expectations of the 20s, as a realization of Bauhaus utopia, a kind of virtual city built on the base of pure geometry and rationality. In this sense, the internet and the architecture of internet, and internet is basically an architectural project, a design project, where you have this homepage, yeah, and every homepage is basically like every other homepage and so on. So it's very much structured as a Bauhaus and Russian avant-garde buildings project. So the internet was celebrated, and rightly celebrated, if you want, as a victory of this complete transparency. Now, in a very interesting way, we begin to experience the internet as the darkest place on earth, yeah? As a place of surveillance, conspiracies, and counter-conspiracies. And in this sense, it's interesting to look at what Assange says at one place. He says that if you want to create a complete transparency in the internet, then you have to invent a particular encryption code that makes your own activity completely dark and impenetrable for everybody, even for the most efficient and rich states and powerful states, the superpowers. So you have to come to complete darkness and conspiracy if you want to create the realm of complete transparency. And as I read that, I thought, yes, so it is. Yeah? If you look at, from this perspective, at the history of the avant-garde, we can begin with, if you want, with Christian Church. You can go to Communist Party. You can move to Bauhaus. All of them were places of conspiracy. They were places of conspiracy in a sense that they created their own language, their own space, their own way of thinking, their own closed circle of sensibility. They delineated, isolated themselves, at least in their language, from the outside world. They created a kind of sectarian closure. And precisely this sectarian closure was what allowed them to try to create the project of the universal conspiracy. Now I ask myself, is this possibility of closure, is this possibility of complete and impenetrable encryption, yeah, in one way or another, be it ontological, like in Christian church, or political, or artistic, is it still possible? So is it possible to create the outside of the world? Yeah? And so from this outside to act on the flow of events and the logic of technological progress. Because this logic itself cannot actually create any change. Yeah? The change has to come from the outside. I participated in a couple of seminars under participation of architects that was in Paris, and the discussions were circling around this similar question, but informed by Bataille's, and Bataille's theory of accursed share. Is there something still excluded? Is there something still unreachable? Is there any outside, dark outside, from which we can act? Yeah. The reaction was rather no, there is no outside. Is it really true? And it's really rather a question as a suggestion. But let me look in at least two directions. One direction is maybe connected to what I'm interested in now. That is a question of the role of cosmos and cosmic imagination in the modernity. And if you look at the cosmos and cosmic imagination, then we see an extreme feeling of vulnerability that is typical for the modernity from the beginning of the 19th century. If you remember, I think the last instance of manifestation of this feeling of vulnerability was the Lars von Trier movie, Melancholia. Yeah? The feeling that something can come from the dark outside. That can be a destructive power. That can be maybe a power that changes our lives in a different way. But there is something beyond the ecology of our world that is still under control. And it seems to me that the kind of cosmic imagination is developing now, even in artistic and architectural terms. And the second point, the second direction of reflection is the internet itself. We more and more also experience the internet not as a home place, but as a dangerous place. We more and more have a feeling to exist and to live under the gaze of the other, yeah, the Lacanian gaze of the other. And this Lacanian gaze of the other is, as Lacan actually says, is always, at least potentially, evil gaze. Yeah? Even if we believe it is benign gaze, we experience the emotion as an evil gaze. And so this existence as the gaze of the other, looking at us from a place where this gaze cannot be returned. Yeah? The gaze look at us, but we cannot look at it. This kind of dissymmetry between our gaze and this gaze of the other is, it seems to me, a genuine contemporary experience. Yeah? It was maybe conceptualized by Sartre and Lacan before, but not in this radical form of impossibility of to return the gaze, yeah? As we experienced it now. So it seems to me that this project of total transparency is only realized in the imagination of contemporary mankind, yeah, maybe, yeah. everything is designed, everything is under control, everything we can see, everything is okay, everything is transparent and human-made. Actually, we are still in the world where dark places exist, when something can come from the outside. And it seems to me that if we want to change the world, so to say, we have to reflect on that. So we don't have to reflect on technological progress. We don't have to reflect on the possibilities that it opens or closes. But what it left behind, what is outside, what new outsides and new others created by this project. Only if we look in this direction, we can at least, in two ways, react to these dark places or dark spaces. One is to give them a form. It's a very classical, like also Trier tried to do that in his movie, to give it a form, or to create a new way of enlightenment and to struggle against this darkness. Okay, thank you.